Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Breaking news and a 360 exclusive. The first interview with Donald Trump's last rival. For one brief moment, Ohio Governor John Kasich was the last man standing between Donald Trump and the Republican presidential nomination. Trump had just won the Indiana primary. Ted Cruz had just left the race. Governor Kasich woke up the next morning having just gotten what he said he wanted, a chance to go one-on-one with Trump and prevail somehow at the convention in Cleveland. Instead, that same day, Governor Kasich decided to end his run. He's yet to explain that in an interview because, as I mentioned, he hasn't given one since then. Then there's the speculation about him being drafted to run as an independent, his name being floated as vice presidential pick, and whether or not he'll throw his support behind Donald Trump. I talked about all of that with Governor Kasich and more this morning at the governor's mansion in Columbus. Your name has come up in the news a lot just the last couple of days, and I want to ask you about it. There's a story in the Washington Post this weekend. It's got a lot of pickup that a number of Republicans, conservatives, Mitt Romney among them, has been looking at the possibility of a third-party candidate or an independent candidate or conservative candidate. Your name has been mentioned. Has Mitt Romney reached out to you? Have you had a conversation?
Well, I don't want to get into who. I've had a phone call with somebody that wanted me to consider running as third-party candidate.
Are you considering running?
No, I'm not going to do that. No.
Why?
Well, I think that I gave it my best where I am. And I just think running third party, it doesn't feel right. I think it's not constructive. And, you know, one of the things that's interesting is it's really hard to be thoughtful when you're dealing with the media, because many of them think that everything is sort of a political ploy or a political play. It's been a little bit of a disappointment for me. In fact, I've talked to somebody in the media to say, you know, you have a responsibility. You know, it's really been interesting. You can have depth to something, and people think, well, that's just politics. No. When I talk about two paths, you know, the path of rebuilding the country or pushing people down into the ditch, that's not some political ploy that somebody calculated for me. That's my insides. That's my soul. And so, you know, a third-party candidacy would be viewed as kind of a silly thing, and I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, I just don't think it would be the right thing to do.
Would you, it's not right for you. Would you like to see somebody else run at this point?
You know, that I haven't even thought about that. I think that a third-party candidacy to achieve what? To win? Or to just go in and disrupt? I mean,
to stop Donald Trump.
The only reason to do anything like that would be if you had a message that you felt so compelled to deliver that it would give you an opportunity to do that. But I don't see who's out there with that kind of a message, and would it work? I mean,
so I mean, it does. Reince Priebus has called the idea, I think, a suicide mission for whoever does it in terms of hurting their career, hurting their future political career. You don't want to see a third person, somebody coming into the race to run essentially to stop Donald Trump. You don't think that's necessary?
No, I mean, I haven't even thought about it. The answer would be no. I just think we now are going to have the two standard bearers. Look, I remember when Perot ran, he had a very important message he wanted to deliver on the economy and on the budget. You know, I mean, that was guy, you never questioned what Ross Perot was doing. I think a third-party insurgency, Teddy Roosevelt did it, right? I don't know if he did it because he was concerned or because he was angry, that he had been left out. But I just think we're not a third-party kind of a country, and you know, and just to run a campaign to block somebody, to me, see, because at the same time I wanted to win and I wanted to get to an open convention. My basic deal was not to stop somebody else; it was to be about the ideas I had. So I'm not kind of an againer, you know. I'm against somebody. Although, you know, if things get really in a bad situation, I could be, but I'm not there yet.
The sentence you were started and didn't finish is the idea of running to just block somebody. That's not something you feel is right or appropriate?
Not for me.
Not for you.
Not for me.
Has there been any moment where you thought, maybe I dropped out too soon, maybe I should have stuck with it? I mean,
well, you know, the interesting part about that is when Indiana happened and you had the chairman of the Republican Party endorse Trump, which I thought was completely inappropriate.
Inappropriate because?
Well, I'm still there. What, you know, he just wanted to get this thing over. I'm not happy about it. But anyway, neither here nor there. We learned to forgive and forget. But we were going to stay in it for 4 or 5 days to see if people would really come with the biggest money. Because we were never able to get big money in the campaign. We were outspent 50 to 1, yet I'm like the last guy standing, right, against Trump. But they didn't want me to say that, my team, unanimously. Because if you say, we're going to see how it works, then the media puts, a death watch on you until you're dead. And so I was going to go to Washington and do a lot of press, USA Today editorial board. I had 2 fundraisers. And I was thinking, well, how do I reconcile the fact that I'm going to tell people that I'm going to run as hard as I can to the convention, knowing that in 48 or 72 hours or whatever, that I might drop out. And we were actually sitting on the plane, and I was really conflicted. I was not as conflicted as one might think. I said, we're getting out of this plane. And then I called the closest staff together. I said, it's time to go, because I would have been disingenuous to have had an interview with you saying we're going all the way, knowing in the back of my mind we might be gone in 72 hours. Or because I don't know if the money was. We were actually, financially, we were doing fine. We were going to raise a good chunk of money, but not enough to have made the kind of difference that I felt we needed to make. And here's what I was really worried about. The message of unity, the message of healing, what I took to the campaign and stayed with consistently. I did not want that message to be belittled. It is so important for our country that that message is alive. And I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want people to forget, say, well, he's going to get beaten in Nebraska or New Jersey, and, what's he doing? And so I sort of felt preserving the message was really more important than anything else.
In terms of what happens now, I guess the obvious question is,
what do I do now?
Well, one obvious question is, will you endorse Donald Trump?
I don't know, unless I told you about this 2 paths. If I feel, I read some stuff recently. Well, I'm not, glued to this. I've read some other stuff that to me is too negative. So I'm undecided.
Do you want what sort of stuff?
Well, I don't think I need to get into specifics, but, people that are, attacking. I don't like when he's attacking, putting people down, or, learn to take it a little bit. The idea, at least initially of, well, maybe Paul Ryan shouldn't be at the convention. I mean, come on, man, you won. Be magnanimous in victory. So, Anderson, what I'm saying is, I'm for uniting, and I have to see him move to uniting. If he doesn't, I'm undecided here at this point. So we'll see what happens.
So just for the record, you're undecided about whether or not you would endorse Donald Trump as president?
Am. Right, I'm undecided.
Are you undecided about whether you'd actually vote for him?
No, at the end of the day, endorsing is going to mean a lot. And frankly, my wife and my daughters have watched this. And if I were to turn around today and endorse him, they'd be like, why, Dad? And that matters to me. We'll see what he does. He has a chance to move to the positive side and unify this country.
Is it a question of tone or policies?
I think it's both. I think it's both. And, have some consistent policy and be positive. If you don't, look, Anderson, we know that the Beatles were right. Money can't buy you love. But we guaranteed know that the foundation of the country needs to be a strong economy. That gives people hope. But the spirit of our country doesn't rest in dollars and cents. It rests inside of us. And if we are saying that the reason you're doing poorly is because somebody from Mexico is taking your money, or somebody from China is taking your money, that's not a standing against the wind. That's, in some sense, that's scapegoating. I don't like scapegoating. Okay, we have problems. Have the elites left us down? Are you kidding me? Of course, the politicians have been terrible, terrible. Okay, so what are we going to do? Just sit around being in a bad mood? Or can we say, okay, what am I going to do for my community? What am I doing for my family? What am I doing for the struggle that I have to bring about a positive? That's what matters to me for our country, because our country is so divided. I had a delightful conversation with Paul Ryan over the weekend. I intend to go out and campaign for House and Senate members. I left a message for the head of the Senate campaign committee. If they want me, I will go and help them. Paul Ryan was delighted to hear it. And Paul and I You know, one of the things that a friend of mine in New York said is, could you imagine if you were president and Paul Ryan were speaker, it could have changed everything. Just like we came in 2010 and 11 and changed Ohio dramatically, I had a partner there, and that's a little bit frustrating. But I told Paul, I said, Paul, I'll do whatever you want, whatever you need. If I can appear for people, I'll be for it. If I come out against them, it'll help them, I'll do that. Whatever makes sense.
Do you think Donald, I mean, you talked about sort of, you know, his reaction, both his tone and also his policies. Do you think at this point he's convinced you he has the temperament, the ability to be president, the qualifications?
I'm going to give him more time. I mean, not that I'm, you know, so I'm just John Kasich. But I have a right to take a position. I will have a position and opinion. I've made it clear that I need to see a positive approach. And, you know, if there's one not forthcoming, you know, it's going to be a real problem.
Do you think he's capable of that? I mean, you stood on that stage with him.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know him really that well. I mean, I stood on a stage with him. I didn't spend time with him. You know, there's a sense in the media that we're all kind of hanging out and calling one another. You know, that's a fantasy. The closest we all were was when we were in the elevator in Cleveland, all of us in one elevator. I looked around, I thought, boy, if this elevator just crashed, that would be really interesting. The people would probably cheer. Yes!
Was it one of those awkward silent elevator rides? Or?
You know, that was the other thing. Some of these candidates would just viciously attack one another, and then we'd be backstage, and they'd be like, how's it going? You know, it's like it was like a game. It wasn't a game to me. At any time was running for president a game.
Obviously, your name has also been talked about as a vice presidential candidate, vice presidential pick. Ben Carson has given a number of names. Donald Trump.
Is Ben picking vice president?
Well, he's talking about who Donald Trump apparently is looking.
Well, remember the last time a guy thought that, you know, maybe Ben will be picked, right? You never know.
All joking aside, Governor Kasich did have a serious answer to the question of whether he would accept an offer to be Donald Trump's running mate. That is next. Also, welcome back to breaking news and a CNN exclusive tonight. Ohio Governor John Kasich speaking out for the first time since ending his presidential campaign. He outlasted 15 other rivals, including some of the biggest names in GOP politics. He told me he's not interested in running a third-party campaign in November. Before the break, he joked about vice presidential selection process now underway in the Trump campaign. In this part of our conversation, I asked him directly what he would do if he got the offer. Is that something you would consider? I mean, during the campaign, you said absolutely not.
No, I've not changed my mind on that. Look, I've said all along, I have the second best job in America.
So if Donald Trump called you up today and said, look, you got to do this. You got to do this for the country.
No, I'm not inclined to do that. I'm not. No. And I'm really actually excited about getting back here with my team for the state of Ohio. I gave it my best.
Because Trump has said he wants somebody with, you know, experience on the Hill.
Well, look, here's the situation. You know, we've had two different messages. His message was, you know, the elites are bad and everybody's given you the shaft and kind of gotten people angry. My message is, yeah, a lot of these elites, whether it's the politicians, whether it's big business, whether it's athletes, whether it's the media, whether it's entertainment, they've all disappointed us in one way or another. And many people have gotten the shaft, but my message is, let's stand against the wind. Don't cave into the negative. Let's figure out how, as people, we can rebuild our country. Those are two very inconsistent messages. So it would be very hard for me, unless he were to change all of his views and become a uniter, for me to get in the middle of this thing. Because, you know, I'm undecided here about what I'm going to do in this race.
You know this state incredibly well, obviously. I think there was a recent Quinnipiac poll of Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton in battleground states. It showed essentially them even, I mean, within the margin of error.
Oh, I mean, look, these polls come and go. I mean,
do you think this?
And I don't know who they're polling. I don't know if they're polling likely voters, all voters. I don't know.
Do you think Ohio is a Hillary Clinton state or a Donald Trump state?
Well, I think that if you're not a unifier, you have a big problem. If you're going to double down on negative, it isn't going to work.
Doesn't work in Ohio.
I don't believe it does. No, you cannot come into here with a glass half empty and polarize people and think you're going to win Ohio.
The conventional wisdom, which is both conventional, I'm not sure how much wisdom it is, and it's usually
it's proved wrong. Nothing's been right.
Proved wrong.
Yes.
So I hate to even use that term, but A lot of people are looking at this race that's coming and thinking this is going to be unlike anything we've seen. It's going to be just scorched earth. It's going to be brutal.
Oh, but both of them are going to use negative tactics. There's no question about it. Try to beat the other one down. And, you know, that's just adds to the cynicism about politicians. I've always believed that in politics, your strength is are your ideas. It's not like beating somebody else down. People said, well, why didn't you go negative? Why didn't you get into it with Trump? Why didn't you? At one point, I did, when he kept talking about deporting 11.5 million, and Ben Carson basically said he wanted to abolish Medicare. At that point, I'd had enough. But if your thrust is going to be negative, then go get another job. Because to me, you get people passionate about ideas.
Well, as we talked about, you were on that debate stage an awful lot. When Donald Trump now says...
Everyone. They never thought I'd make the first one.
Donald Trump's now saying the temporary ban on Muslims was just a suggestion. Does that surprise you? Because when he said it, when his campaign announced it, it didn't sound like a suggestion.
Look, if you want to be a great leader, you have to have consistency. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be consistent on everything. You have a right to change your position or your mind. But you better be careful about what you say, because you are, like, running for president of the United States.
Final question. You said you don't think Trump can win Ohio if the message stays the way it has been, the tone stays it has been. Do you think he can win the presidency if the message doesn't change?
I think it's very, very difficult if you are a divider. Now, we have to see how Mrs. Clinton performs. She's going to be the nominee, and we're going to have to see what she does. I mean, if she's going to move far to the left, it is, you know, then it's an open race. If she does not, if she doesn't have a unifying message, then, you know, it's like a throw it up. I mean, who wins? But the demographics are a real problem for Republicans if they spend their time bashing Hispanics, turning off African Americans, and not getting young people excited. I mean, how do you win?
Governor Kasich, thank you very much.
Yes. Enjoyed it.